So we are back with another live. We're here with Claudine Hemingway.
Bonjour.
Currently, we're just talking to ourselves. So if you're watching, enjoy.
Looking at Coco.
Looking at Coco. I'm going to annoy Coco again and pick him up. He's actually sleeping right now, so he's going to be so mad. Like, why do you keep harassing me? Coco. Oh,
Mimi. Oh, Coco.
Mimi, I'm sorry for showing the puppy right now.
So cute.
Yeah. Hi,
Hello, Christina. Ellen. I know I thought about Christina's going to be so happy because we're talking about Vigee Brun.
Oh, she likes Vigee.
She brought her up when I think the first or second live stream, Christina. I think she was like, do one on Vigee. And like, oh, she's on the list. We have recorded it. So.
Oh, great. Yeah. We definitely. And Hadley's out tomorrow. Because we just talked about the book.
Mm-hmm.
And next month, we're talking about Julia Childs. That is our book for next month. If you're curious to read along with our book club, you can read about Julia Childs. What's the name of the book we're reading next?
My Life in France.
My Life in France.
So great. Such a great book.
Oh, Mimi thinks that Coco's cute. Lucky day.
So cute.
He gets really, he's like any child. He gets really grumpy right before it's time to sleep. And he just wants, like, leave him alone. But I'm just going to keep harassing. I made Giuseppe go out and walk him in this T-shirt, and he got a lot more attention than he wanted. Giuseppe was not a fan of dressing the dog in clothes. Everyone thinks I'm gay.
My mom has she used to have Great Danes. She had 3 of them at a time one time. And she had coats made for each of them. And she had like a matchy coat. And one day she's like, do you want to walk the dogs with us? I was like, nope.
I will not embarrass myself.
Nope. I am not going out there with you dressed like the dogs are wearing coats.
I've totally become one of those crazy moms. It's a dog, and I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed at all. Well, it's so nice to have you guys here today. We are talking about the female artists of Paris past, and we've talked about a lot of these women on the podcast, but they have not all been released yet. So you're going to learn a little bit of information before you hear their full stories. Although a couple of them we talked about. We talked about Suzanne.
Suzanne and Victorine.
Yep, Suzanne and Victorine. And then who else are we talking about today, Claudine?
We're also going to talk about Morisot, which I sometimes just start giving things away, the questions.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Debbie. But Morisot, and then also Vigee Lebrun. Elisabeth Vigee Lebrun. Yes.
I feel like it's such a mouthful when I'm
I know. I made that video for Instagram, and I had to do it 3 times because I was like, I
feel like I have marbles in my mouth and I don't speak.
Yeah, it is. But we've recorded podcasts on all of them. Only 2 have been released so far. So the others are, as you said, coming.
They are coming. And once again, we are going to be reading about Julia Childs next month. So I can't believe July is already over. That's
I know.
The summer is over. Like
not yet.
What happened? I feel like I'm still in March.
I know. I think we all feel like we're still in March.
Yeah, when things are still normal, I'm like, wait, what month is it? It's July.
Yeah. I think we all feel like we're in March still.
Yeah, we're all holding back. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Have you here? So as usual, we are going to make it a little fun. We're going to do trivia. We'd love to have you guys interact, ask questions, guess who we're talking about. But some of these ladies we might not know at all. Some of them we might know, but just give a guess. Just throw some names out there because we're going to ask you questions, and then you tell us who you think we are talking about. And of course, Claudine, who is full of great information, is going to tell us more about each of these ladies, and then we'll talk about them in full length on the podcast.
Yes.
So, do you want to read the first question?
Sure. Who started out working in the circus in Paris?
So maybe we give them the list.
So it's there's Suzanne Valadon, there's Victorine Meurent, Morisot, and Vigee Lebrun.
Whenever I see the name Bert, I want to say Berthe.
I know. But you know, it says French and no H. Can't pronounce the H.
Yeah, they have all these letters they don't pronounce.
Yeah.
So in French, Berthe is just Bert.
Bert. No.
Bert and Ernie.
It sounds a little prettier than that.
You can guess Bert and Ernie. So who do we think started working out in the circus in Paris? I mean, all these ladies later became artists, but this woman started in the circus. Carol is guessing Suzanne. Very good guess. I'm wondering if Carol read our last book in the book. So I have a feeling she did because she liked the book. She finished the book.
So it is, you are correct, Carol. It was Suzanne Valadon. And when she was just 15 years old, she lived in Montmartre. And when she was just 15 years old, she saw a poster for the Cirque Fernando. And it was going to be down at the top of Rue de Martier, just right down there. And she saw this and thought, oh, this is a great idea, because she wanted to kind of get away from under her mom, and she didn't want to be a seamstress. So she performed as a acrobat. And she was there for 6 months until she fell during rehearsal, hurt her back, and ended her circus days.
I mean, it happens to the best of us, falling off the trapeze.
I'm pretty sure I'd fall off right the first time.
That's better things for her, that's for sure.
I probably wouldn't let go. I'd be like, no.
I just think it's so cool there was a circus in Montmartre, because I live in Montmartre now and there's no circus to be seen here.
I mean, the circus back then, I think, was like this really fancy thing to go see too. Like now you think of circus, it's like, it's a little.
Let's not go.
Yeah, it's a little scary, but
pre-iPhone, pre-television.
Yes, yeah.
They do still have the circus in the Marais. I think it's Cirque d'Hiver, the winter circus or whatever. And it's, they have regular showings, but I think it's more kind of what Suzanne was doing, like the trapeze and acrobatic stuff, less animal cruelty.
But she learned how, the great thing was with that practice, she learned how to control her body and how to stand. So it made her a really perfect model later, because she was able to then stand there for 6 or 7 hours, while their painters, I'm just not going to give things away. Well, the different painters she worked with painted her because she could just stand there, and hold a pose for that long, because she learned how to do that.
Yes. Yeah, you can give a little bit away. I mean, she started as a muse and as a model for the artist, and then later became a famous artist herself.
Yes. 3 of them all started out as models first.
Yes. Yeah. That was kind of the way in at that time for women, is they would model for the famous artists, they would learn their trade, and then they would begin painting.
Yeah.
Have some fame. All right. Let's read the next question, guys. Who met Manet while she was a copyist in the Louvre? So this woman, she was copying paintings in the Louvre, which I learned from Claudine was a very normal thing to do. I had no idea this was a thing. It's still a thing today. People go to the Louvre and copy paintings.
Yeah. And back then, you could actually take them off the wall, which is just,
not touch the artwork now, guys.
Yeah, get that even that close. But they would actually take, Manet spent a lot of time there, and he was copying a lot of Titian's paintings and a bunch of the other ones. And a lot of those paintings actually inspired like Déjeuner sur l'herbe. There's a bunch of old paintings that he had copied that then inspired him later. But yeah, they would just go and just spend the whole day there, take things off the wall with their easel. Now you could still do it. There's a multi-year waiting list to do it at the Louvre. There's a bunch of different regulations. It has to be smaller or bigger. So you can't make it the exact same size. It has to be smaller or bigger. It has to be stamped on the back by the Louvre. They have to do all this checking. You can't copy the signature. So if you're copying Delacroix, you can't then copy his signature on it.
So before they didn't care. Like
I don't know. I mean, they probably could have, because I don't think back then they probably realized. Like now, you watch those shows, Fake or Fortune, or those ones, where some people are pretty good. There's people who made their living copying and pulling off Van Goghs and stuff like that, and getting it through auctions and people not being able to catch it.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. I just interviewed a woman because she copied a very famous painting at the Louvre that I'm really excited to share her podcast, because you will know this painting. I'm not going to give anything away, but she talked about her experience as copying the painting in today's world, and she was the first person to copy that painting at the Musée d'Orsay.
Yeah.
You can still do it today. So Ellen is guessing Berthe.
Berthe.
And Debbie is fascinated. Anybody else have a guess? Any guesses for who was copying a painting at the Louvre and then she just bumped into Manet? Casual. I think that Ellen's a pretty good guesser.
Yep, that is right. Yeah, it was, in fact, it was Berthe. She, when she was little, she and her sister actually showed some early artistic talent, and her father actually was supportive of it, which isn't a thing that you would normally see back then either. But he was pretty supportive of it, and they were studying under a man named Joseph Guichard, and part of it was that they would go into the Louvre. They always had to be chaperoned. The two girls could go there by themselves. And Henry Fantin Latour, who is another really fascinating artist that not a lot of people know about, but he was just paintings of groups. So I think in the next week or two I have a post coming up about one of them. But he knew the girls, and so he one day was like, "I'm going to take Manet to go meet them." And so Manet met him, and Manet actually kind of thought her sister was kind of cute. It was actually later that he painted her many times. He painted Berthe many times, and Berthe became, all of them. Berthe and Vigee were probably the two biggest artists that came out of this group of ladies.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, it's fascinating, the history, and I just had no idea that so many of them were modeling before they became artists themselves. Yeah. It really makes me wonder if they got into modeling just to go that route, to become an artist, be around the greatest artists.
Yeah, Suzanne definitely did that.
Yeah, she had a plan.
Yeah,
but she trashed most of her early paintings. I think she wasn't a believer.
Yeah, she kind of kept ruining a lot of the ones that she did.
Yeah,
she kept it hidden for a long time that she was even painting.
If you want to be a copyist at the Louvre today, do you actually have to have some talent, or can you just say, I wanted to copy it, and then it can be like a line drawing? A stick figure.
I mean, mine would basically be like, here's the stick figure.
Stick figure. Like, is that okay?
No, I think they probably definitely have to have something. And then when you do see them, there's always a sign that says "Do not photograph." But I always stand back. And I did a post. I collected. I kept taking all these pictures, and it's really fascinating to walk behind them and look and see what they're painting compared to the wall. And some of them are really, really good. There was a guy one day in the Sully wing where the Delacroix room is, and he was making a paint, but he wasn't copying the painting. He was actually painting a view of the whole room.
Oh, cool!
Which was really interesting. So
he was doing paintings in that case.
But I was stand back and kind of check it out. And then, but you could go, if you just went in there, any of us could go in there right now today and take a piece of paper. And if you were sketching, but as far as copying, that's a whole different.
You're always allowed to sketch. You're just not allowed to copy.
Yeah, they're not going to stop you if you're just sitting there sketching.
That's really interesting. Mm-hmm. All right, let's have Claudine read the next one.
I didn't give this one away yet. Who became the official painter of Queen Marie Antoinette?
This one we recently talked about. I'm really fascinated by this woman because she had to do a major pivot. Talk about pivoting, with the COVID, everyone's pivoting their jobs right now. So she was painting the Queen Marie Antoinette, and then the revolution happened. And it was like, okay, I need a new job. So
and then she got the heck out, like all of them did. That's
very smart, because if you did not leave, you were not going to be around much longer.
If you had anything to do, if you were the person that put on the Queen's shoes that day, you had to get out of Dodge, or else you're going to lose your head.
Yeah, if you had any relation to the kingdom at all.
Yeah.
So, this person was the official painter of Queen Marie Antoinette. Let's list the ladies again. Claudine's better at saying them than I am.
So there's Suzanne Valadon, Victorine Meurent, Berthe Morisot, and Elisabeth Vigee.
So who do we think was the official painter of Queen Marie Antoinette before the revolution happened? And I think this is such a fascinating history. Carol read someplace that they jury your paintings before you can be accepted.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 2 or 3 year waiting list.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our stick figures would not make it, Claudine, I think.
No.
It could be abstract, it could be modern.
I think it's a cubist. It's a cubist.
It's a cubist painting. Don and Carol, hello.
Yeah.
Don and Carol know their history. You are correct.
And I knew Christina was going to get this one. Yes, it was Vigee Lebrun. Also, most of these ladies are 19th century. Vigee is obviously 18th because of Marie Antoinette. But she, from a very early age, she started painting, and she always was doing portraits. So like at the end of her life, out of the 900 paintings she did, more than 600 of them were just portraits of people. And so she actually was commissioned to do a painting for the Count de Provence, who would later be, as we know, Louis XVIII. And she painted a picture of him, and Marie Antoinette loved, because Vigee has a very delicate, very soft touch. I mean, it is very feminine, and she just loved those paintings. And so she asked her, to paint for her, and then she became her official portraitist.
I mean, what an honor. Mm-hmm. And they became friends too.
Yeah, they became friends. She, you'll hear all of it in the podcast, but, she really wanted to be a part of the Royal Academy. And at the time they let like one woman in, every 900 years or something. It's not that, but
approximately never.
But they were just like, they wouldn't let her in. And so Marie Antoinette actually went to Louis, because the Royal Academy the king oversaw it, and she convinced him to let her in. So she ended up being able to become part of the Royal Academy.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, she worked her way up to the top. Good businesswoman. And she went on to do other things during the Revolution, which you can listen to the podcast to learn all about.
Yes.
So let's talk about our next female artist in French history. We are going to ask you, who was known as Les Crevettes? The Crevettes. So let's give the list again. We have Suzanne. We have Berthe. We have Victorine. Who am I forgetting?
And Vigee. Vigee Lebrun.
Vigee. Mm-hmm. The G is a J.
Yes.
So it's known as Le Crevette. And do you want to talk about what that means?
So it's crevette is actually means shrimp.
Yes, le crevette. Crevette, yes.
Crevette, yeah. La crevette.
So who was
in our notes? It's la.
It's a little shrimpy shrimp.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Debbie knows. I mean, we're going to have to give it to Debbie because she was so fast.
Yeah, so fast. Yeah, it was actually, in fact, it was actually Victorine, because she had red hair, and she was also kind of small. So they called her La Crevette because her small features. But later, she would actually be called the ideal of ugliness because of one of the famous paintings she was in, which is horrible. And she's not. I mean, after she was in Olympia, is the most famous painting that Manet did of the courtesan laying down. And when that appeared at the salon, all these people said oh, she's the ideal of ugliness. This is so horrible. And it's such a beautiful painting. And she's so beautiful in the painting.
I thought they were going to say that because she's a redhead, which seems completely wrong to me. I love redheads. I think they're beautiful.
Yeah. I know.
It's so mean how terrible people are to redheads. So Don got it. Don't worry, Don. We got it with Vic.
Yeah, we know what you're saying, Don.
All right, Claudine, how about you read the next one?
The next one. Who modeled for Renoir on the same street that Dalida lived on?
Oh, I love how the histories just are overlapping.
I know.
I feel like all these artists were just going in circles around each other and not even knowing it.
Yeah, I figured when I was doing notes for the podcast that we're recording this week, I actually think that at one point I need to do a 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah,
it's so crazy how many people are from St. Louis that we've talked about, or they lived in St. Louis at some time. How many people, there's just all of these crazy different things that are so intertwined that I was like, there needs to be a 6 degree of separation of our podcast.
There has to be a reason that all these people are connected. It's very strange.
Yeah.
And we talked about that a lot on the show. Mm-hmm. Lillian's here. Lillian, I was talking about.
Hey, Lillian.
We were talking about copyist. Lillian is our copyist, guys. You have to check out her new book where she copied a very famous painting from the Musée d'Orsay.
And it comes out this week, within a few days, I think.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Check it out. You have to just look up her name. You'll know her book.
No painting.
All right, guys, it's unanimous. It's Suzanne. You are correct.
It is Suzanne. Renoir. His studio was on Rue de Orchamps, which is the same street. If you go down, that's a very tiny little street. If you go down the end of the street, that's where Dalida lived. But it was that was where he painted her in the dancers. He did 3 paintings. They were just the different dancers. There was the city, the country, and Bougival. And he had Suzanne model for all 3 of them. But in the end, there's only 2 of the 3 that actually have her in it because his lover, mistress at the time, freaked out and actually scraped up the one of Dance in the Country. Is one of the 2 that you can see in the Orsay, and she scraped it up, and he had to repaint it, and he repainted it as Eileen instead of Suzanne.
I mean, these jealous lovers, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. He was sleeping with everybody, modeling for everybody back then.
Yes. Hey, Cindy. Yeah, so there's the 3 paintings. 2 of them are in the Orsay. The other one, I think, is in the Met. I think it's in New York.
And we'll learn more about her. Well, actually, that one you can listen to now. Suzanne's actually released. That was a really interesting one. And I love the book. We did her book for the book club. Renoir's Dancer. It's fascinating if you want to learn more about Suzanne. Suzanne was a wild child. She had a very interesting life. You definitely want to.
She definitely was.
Very inspired by her. Okay, so who was welcomed into the folds of the Impressionists? So this female artist was loved among the other Impressionists, who were all male, mostly, and they saw her as an equal. So who do you think that was? Let's name them again, Claudine. I'm making you name them.
Suzanne Valadon, Victorine Meurent, Berthe Morisot, and Vigee Lebrun.
So who do you think was seen as an equal by the other Impressionists? Mm-hmm. If you know any of your art history here. It's a good guess, Cindy. We'll have to talk about Cassette.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like, did they eventually welcome Suzanne, the Impressionist? Not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
She didn't do as many. She didn't do as much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she wasn't. Mm-hmm. An equal in their eyes. Her son was.
Yeah.
All right. Look at these ladies go. We have a smart group.
I know. They're so smart. And I know Don knows his Impressionists. I know that. But yeah, it was Berthe. She, she started out she was a model for Manet, and some of my favorite paintings, I had shared them in the Instagram stories. If you saw, there's the one of her, she's actually dressed in mourning, and she's all in black. She has a black hat on, and it's a pretty close picture, a painting of her, and she's holding violets down low, but you can't even see them, but it's like the most stunning, beautiful painting. But she started as a model for Manet, and then she was also, she was painting before she even modeled for him. But when they did the first exhibition of the Impressionists in 1874, she was the only woman out of 29 artists to be there. And she showed 19, 20 paintings.
Oh, wow.
She was Mary Cassatt was also another one, Cindy. She definitely was in there. She was, she came actually from America. I'll add her to the list. But she was another one that became part of the Impressionists. But it was Berthe. Berthe. Look what you're making me say. Berthe. It was Berthe first that definitely got in there.
That's how I keep her in my mind.
I know.
All right, let's read the next one. You guys were really smart on that one. Let's see if we can get you on this one. So who had Degas as her personal mentor? That's a mentor I wouldn't mind having. Degas was her personal mentor. He favored her. He helped her a lot. He spread her paintings around and let people know she existed, because I think before Degas, she wasn't really respected.
Right.
Yeah. So who do you think that was? Was it Victorine? Was it Berthe? Let's see. Suzanne Valadon. Who else are we talking about? Vigee.
Yeah.
Those are our main ladies. So this person had Degas as her personal mentor. And if you read the book, then you would know a little bit more about this information, which was fascinating. Lillian, that's a good guess. Carol, good guess. And Cindy, good guess. Suzanne, yeah. Guys were right. It was Suzanne Valadon. She was besties with Degas. Not a bad guy to have as your friend.
Yeah, she became a lover of Toulouse-Lautrec, and he saw her and wanted to paint her, and then they became lovers. And he had showed her paintings that she had done, which she kept really to herself. She wasn't nobody really knew she was doing it. And I think it was Toulouse-Lautrec. I think he found out she was doing it when she didn't show up at his studio. So he went to her apartment. And then that's when he was like, wait, what are these? Like, that's how he found out she was painting. So when he saw him and he showed a friend of his, Bartolome, who was a sculptor, and he saw those, he's like, we need to show these to Degas. And so they did show, they got them to Degas, and, he invited her over to his house one day. And here's, Suzanne going over to Degas' house with her paintings. And when he saw him, he instantly said, "You're one of us."
I mean, that's a huge compliment coming from Degas, because he was not easy to impress. Like, he was a very difficult man.
Yeah. And if you read the book, she was a wild child, and she definitely, like, he was trying until the end of his life. Like, Suzanne, I haven't seen you. Why don't you come over? I want to see your paintings. She kind of pushed him away to the end of her life, or end of his life. And which is kind of too bad, because having Degas as your mentor.
Why would you give that up? That seems like a pretty good person to have in your life.
Yeah.
You really believed in her. All right. I'm going to let Claudine read the next one.
The next one. Well, I just gave part of this away. Who sat for Toulouse-Lautrec? It's actually, there's two people. So I gave away one, but there's a second.
Who do you think it was? They were sitting for Toulouse-Lautrec. Became a lover of Toulouse, one of them.
One of them became the lover.
So our ladies again, we have Victorine, we have Suzanne, we have Vigee, we have Berthe.
Yes.
So name two.
There's two.
Mm-hmm. Cindy's on the right track. Who do you think the other person was that sat for Toulouse-Lautrec? And if I remember reading right, Suzanne actually broke his heart, correct?
Yes.
She was a heartbreaker, that Suzanne. So who do you think the other person was? This is what I really love about all these ladies, like, going in circles and the same artist. It's so wild.
Because most of them, Berthe was born in 1841, Victorine 1844, and Suzanne Valadon 1865. And they're definitely all were around the same amount of time.
Yeah, they were all hanging out. All right, Berthe. All right, let them know, Claudine.
That is true. It was both of them. But, Suzanne was the one that had the extra relationship with him. Berthe did not.
Yeah.
And there's only a few of the paintings as many times as Suzanne sat for him. There's not as many of those paintings are still around. It's kind of hard. There's one of her that's kind of, she's sitting there, and it's called like The Hangover or something like that. And she's sitting on the table. I think it was one of the pictures I used. But there's not that many. There isn't that many. I saw some sketches that he did of it at the Toulouse-Lautrec exhibition at the Grand Palais this past, I think I saw those in January. Those are pretty amazing though.
So he was getting around that Lautrec, but Suzanne actually broke his heart. So
she did. She broke a lot of people's hearts.
Lautrec. Incestuous group, exactly, Lillian. That was my thoughts exactly. It's very incestuous.
Yeah.
Everybody. There was a lot of alcohol involved. What can we say?
There was. Suzanne got around.
She lived a very long life, considering the syphilis issue there was at that period.
Yes.
All right. Who would marry the younger brother of Edward Manet? So who married the younger brother of Edward Manet? This is once again very incestuous. Everybody's hanging out with everybody, marrying the brothers of Manet. Who do we think it was? Suzanne, Victorine, Berthe, Vigee.
Yeah, I love all the stories where, they're all there, but I'm sure there was somebody just named Joe that was just there that, it was just Joe that lives in Paris. He wasn't a famous artist, but I'm sure there was regular people.
Yeah, I mean,
And all these, they were all regular people then. They're not like, now we're like, oh my God, Toulouse-Lautrec, oh my God, Manet.
yeah,
Back then they weren't, larger than
celebrity.
life to us like they are now.
That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
They were all just hanging out, getting drunk together. All right, so we have Berthe and Victorine. You guys got some good guesses. Yes, we are on the right track, guys. So it was. I'll let you explain more of that.
It was Berthe. She, she was always very close with Edward Manet, of course, because she did the many different paintings with him. And nobody's really ever been able to say for sure if they had a relationship, or at least, a sexual relationship, we should say. But she ended up actually meeting his brother, Eugène, and he would paint with her in the summer. And, she was close with the whole family. And then they got married in 1874. So then she was part of the family forever. But I love that she kept her name, Morisot.
I mean, it's a great name. She should never get rid of that name.
Yeah.
I mean, my name is a pretty big deal. Why would you not take that name?
Exactly.
I am my own artist.
I know. Back then, good for you, sister.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let Claudine read the next one.
Who shocked the salon when she painted a self-portrait with her mouth slightly open?
I mean, because back then, nobody's mouths were open. We didn't get any teeth, right?
Nope. Nobody smiled.
No smiling. Probably because they were sitting there for hours. He wants to smile for that long.
I know. They're probably like, just get this over with.
Yeah. Also, it's not very French to just sit around smiling for no reason.
No, that's true. Yeah. But I mean, we have, I think we mentioned actually in the recording that, I have pictures of people in our family from like the 1800s and they look like just miserable. There's like,
I mean, also, I don't think like dentistry was so great back then.
Right.
They didn't have the best teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly wanting to show them off.
Yeah.
Don, this is Vigee. Yes, we are on the right track, Don.
Yes, it was. In 1786, she painted a portrait of holding her daughter, and she painted it, and her mouth was like slightly open. I mean, you have to really look at the painting. It's not like, like this huge smile, but she barely has it open. And it was a huge thing. Like it caused this whole uproar because she took the classic image of a mother and child, like Madonna and child, and she had her mouth open a little bit, and it just completely outraged people.
I think that's so funny that that was outrageous. I mean, if you think about the things we see in the media today, like an open smile, what a scandal.
Yeah, just and it's not even like it's not her teeth aren't open, you just barely see. It's very it also says that it's one of the first smiles in Western art.
I love that Cindy said she did the first selfie smile.
Yeah.
It was the original selfie smile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, she definitely turned it. I think a lot of these ladies turned the system upside down, really.
Yeah, they definitely did. They definitely were, pushing the boundaries. I mean, Vigee, she was way ahead of her time, busting into this, world. And her father, her stepfather, I should say, was trying to basically pimping her out to do portraits, and he would take most of the money because she was doing so well with it.
Yeah. He's like, I'll take that money. All right, let's move on to the next one. Who shocked Paris as the nude courtesan and muse of Manet? So somebody was shocking Paris once again, surprise, surprise, as the muse of Manet and the nude courtesan. Maybe you can explain a courtesan. Maybe they don't know what a courtesan is.
Well, I mean, it's basically a high class prostitute.
Prostitute. Like
it sounds better saying a courtesan.
Yeah, that's like the French geisha.
Yeah, yeah. But it's a very famous painting, and I've already alluded to it, I think, probably 2 or 3 times.
Just checking to see if they're listening.
Yeah, this is a note. This is a test here.
It's a test. All right, so we have Suzanne, 2 Victorines. Does anybody else have a guess? They were shocking Paris as the nude courtesan and muse of Manet. Victorine. We got a smart group. These guys know their art.
I know. They know their stuff.
Yeah, I like it. I like our smart art people. So yes, it was Victorine.
It was Victorine, and it's the painting of Olympia. that is the very famous painting of her laying back. He added in all these different elements to like her necklace and her bracelet and all these things that gave the hint of her being a very high class courtesan. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's the way that she's looking. What really bothered the salon and people is the way that she's like looking at you. And, you know, she's kind of looking down, and then, you know, they bring in her servant comes in and brings her the big bouquet of flowers. So it's like, is that from the gentleman that just left? Is it the gentleman that's just about to come there? So, but it was really controversial, but it is really cool because for so long it was just called Olympia. And it was just the black servant in the back. But they did all this research and trying to find, and they, the Orsay actually did an exhibition a couple, like maybe last spring or year or two ago. I wrote a whole thing about it one day, but it was really cool because they did all this research on the black models at the time that never actually had a name. And so they found out her name was Laure. And Manet basically just wrote that, you know, we don't know her last name. It's just her first name. And he wrote in his journals, like where her address was. And she ended up being, you know, she also modeled for a couple other artists, I think Frederic Brazil too. But the exhibition was amazing because it gave a name and a light and the story to a bunch of these people and these paintings that were never given that before.
That's great. They're finally doing that because there's so many of these people we just won't know. And maybe it's difficult to figure out who they were now.
Yeah, it is kind of hard. But Jericho used this one gentleman. I'm forgetting his name right now. But I did the post. I think I put it on Instagram too, but it's also on my website. It was fascinating. It was a fascinating exhibition.
Yeah, I need to check that out. Send that out again.
But that painting, you know, it freaked everybody out at the salon. Olympia did. And everybody, you know, was basically like condemning Manet that he did this. And Émile Zola actually saw it and thought it was amazing. And he wrote a whole pamphlet defending it. And so then later, Manet painted a picture of his friend, Émile Zola, and he's sitting at his desk and he has a book open that, you know, it was something that he wrote, and there's books in the background. But then up in the corner, there's a frame, and it's got it has a Japanese girl, and then also has Olympia. So it's a small version of it. And instead of looking out, she's looking down. And that painting actually was in the salon. So in the end, Manet did get Olympia into the salon.
I love it. It's very tricky.
Yeah. I love it when there's a painting inside of a painting too.
Yeah.
And because all those stories.
It seems so much more complicated to create art. Also, I mean, you're already making a painting, and then to recreate a giant painting inside a small painting. When I see those at the Louvre and the Orsay, it just blows my mind what they can do.
I know. And they're so perfect. Not like our stick figures.
We definitely won't be copyists in our lifetime.
No, we're not going to be copyists. Don't worry.
Lillian, this is a question for Lillian because she was a copyist at the Orsay. So did you have to pass some sort of test or something to become a copyist? Did they ask you to prove that you were worthy to copy the great ones? We'll give Lillian a chance to answer that while we ask the next question. So whose daughter counted the great impressionists as her uncles? All right, so this artist basically,
quote unquote.
Yeah, as her quote unquote uncles. So whose daughter counted the great impressionists as her uncles? So one of the artists gave birth to a little girl, and then the impressionists, basically the male impressionists of that time, helped to raise her daughter. Who do you think that was? I mean, how cool would it be? Oh, look at Don. Don, you're so smart. I mean, he already knows the daughter's name. We got to give it to Don.
And I know he read that. I know he read a book too, a certain book.
A certain book that you may have recommended.
Mm-hmm.
May or may not have recommended. So, yep, it was Berthe.
It was Berthe. But obviously, you know, her uncle is Manet, but Berthe herself, she died in 1895, and Julie was only 17 years old. So all of her Renoir, Monet, Degas, Caillebotte, all of them kind of stepped in to help raise her. One of them gave her a dog that she loved, you know, forever. But she wrote a diary. She started keeping a diary, and it's been published. And you're reading it, and it's just kind of, you know, these people were like her uncles. They were like her family. And you're just like, oh my God, that's Monet.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty, but the diary, and I think I know that Dawn's actually read that book, because I think we've actually had a chat about that, but it's actually it's really fascinating, like the fact that she just grew up in the middle of all of that.
What's the name of the book?
I think it's the diary of Julie Manet.
Okay. Well,
Dawn might remember. I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you just like on Amazon or something, do Julie Manet, I could list it in my boutique on my website too. I'll find it.
Very cool. Yeah, we like that.
Yeah.
And then Lillian did have an answer for us. So we were talking about being a copyist at the Louvre, at the Orsay, what a big deal it is, how you normally would have to, prove yourself. We can't do our stick figures, but Lillian was able to BS her way through it, apparently. And she skipped the 3-month process, and you only had 3 months in Paris. We talk about this on the podcast. So it's a good thing you could BS your way through. That's really cool, because I feel like, yeah, that's the thing I really like about France is there's lots of rules, but you can also BS your way a lot. Like, as long as you convince them, because I feel like in America, the rules are the rules, and that's it. But in France, the rules are, convince me otherwise.
Right. Yeah, I think, growing up, the Impressionist diary, that's it. Growing up in the Impressionists, with the Impressionists, I think. But yeah, actually in the Orsay, I don't know if I've ever seen a copyist in there. And I've gone in there a lot, but so maybe it's a little, the Louvre, maybe the Louvre is a little stricter.
Yeah. You're right. I see a lot more in the Louvre copying than I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't think that I've seen any in the Orsay, but.
Mm-hmm. So we can have figures in the Orsay, Claudine. Let's do it. We can BS the way through, recreate. All right, guys, we have
laughing the whole time. We couldn't do it.
We have our last question for you guys. You're a smart group. I have a feeling you'll know the answer to this too. So, whose paintings were all destroyed after her death in a bonfire? So this poor woman, it's her life's work, and they just took it all and burned it when she died.
All but 1 or 2.
So do we think it was Suzanne? Do we think it was Berthe? Do we think it was Vigee, Victorine? Who do you guys think had a really crappy family and friends that just burned all her stuff? Not the most supportive group, I would say. And so Dawn is saying Victorine. Dawn is very smart. Do you guys have any other guesses? Do you think that Dawn could be wrong? Who would burn the family, all her stuff? Her paintings were basically gone because they just burned it all.
Yes.
Kathy. So Kathy and Carol are thinking Victorine. Dawn is thinking Victorine. Lillian's curious about the circumstances.
She's like, I need more info on this before I could make an educated decision. Look at Dawn.
You're an art historian. Get over here. Come on. Start giving tours.
It was Victorine. So after she died in 1927. She was 83 years old. And after she died, about 4 or 5 years afterwards, her family ended up coming into her house and found all these paintings and her violin. And Dawn, you keep going, Dawn. But they ended up finding all these things, and a neighbor had said that they saw basically they burnt it all in a bonfire. They burnt everything. She died in a small town outside of Paris, Cologne, and there's a museum there, and there's 1 or 2. I've seen either one mentioned that there's only 1 of her paintings, or there's 2 of her paintings there. And when I did the story the other day, I shared 1 of the paintings, but that's it. That's all that's remains of what she had done.
Yeah, that's so sad. Her life work was just.
Yeah, it was very sad.
Yeah, I asked the same question, Cindy. I was like, why would they burn her art? We talked a little bit about this in the podcast. She was a lesbian as well.
She was a lesbian at the end of her life, and she had lived with a woman for a long time, and she wasn't very close with her family. So I think there was a little bit of that where that they just, they didn't really care either about any of that stuff. And when, she was because she was portrayed as Olympia, there was also another painting Manet did that's I think it's just called The Girl with the Parrot. A parrot is a very a symbol of a courtesan. There's all these different symbols. Like in Olympia, they have a black cat that's also supposed to be a symbol of a courtesan. But because she was repeatedly painted in these situations of it, basically her taking the role as a prostitute, a lot of people thought she was. So I'm sure that probably didn't help with some family,
Yeah, they felt she disrespected the family.
Yeah, it's really sad because she ended up actually hurting her hand, and so she wasn't able to paint those at the after Manet died. So she hurt her hand, and she was having a really hard time painting. So she had actually called Manet's widow, Suzanne. Her name was Suzanne Liedhoff, and she called her up, and because Manet had said, if I make money off of these paintings, I'll give you some more money later. And as we know, Olympia is probably worth, millions and millions of dollars now. Yeah. But so she called up his widow after he died and said, Manet said, he was going to give me some money, and she basically blew her off.
Yeah, that's so sad. I feel like everyone just did not help her at all.
No, it's very, very sad stories. A lot of those stories back then are sad.
Not happy endings. And that's true of the male artists too. You look at Van Gogh and a lot of the artists, they died poor.
Yeah, and young.
Yeah. Nobody was living very long back then, sadly.
No, there was something about being 37. A lot of them died at 37.
I thought it was the curse of 36. Is that only the music?
36, 37. Toulouse-Lautrec died like months before his 37th birthday, but Van Gogh was 37. I'm keeping a list every time I find him because I was like, I'm going to write a whole thing about being 36, 37. And then, you think of Van Gogh and you think of all these people that are so huge to us now. And then you realize they died at such a young age. And that's still what they created and contributed to our life now. It's pretty stunning. Yeah, and they weren't around for it. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining. Sorry to end on such a sad note. Did everybody listen to the podcast this week about Rose Valadon?
If you didn't, you should. And also tomorrow, if you didn't hear earlier, we were talking about Hadley Richardson.
Right. Yes.
Hemingway's first wife. So that will be live tomorrow. When you wake up in any part of the world, it should be on the internet. You just Google Vie Creative podcast and you will find it. And we will be doing this again in another 2 weeks. And also, if you want to join our book club, we are reading a book about Julia Childs for the month of August. So you're welcome to join us. And at the end of the month, we will have a Zoom call where we talk about the book, which we did today. And I'll let Claudine talk about the name of the book again for next month.
Yeah, so the next one we're going to start in honor of her birthday and also, sadly, when she passed away, Julia Child. So My Life in France, written by Julia Child, that came out. She wrote it with her nephew, and that came out actually after she passed away. But it's an amazing book, and I just read it for the third time because we're recording Julia Child this week. So I had to read it again, and I was almost in tears at the end, even though I've, again, read it 3 times and I know how the story ends. But I was like, no, I just love her so much. Julia's so amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited to read that one because I actually have never read that book. I've never read any of her books, which shame on me, but I'm excited to learn more about her.
Yeah, I think we might have to, maybe the next live stream might have to be about Julia.
I think that's a great idea. We can do trivia on Julia.
I know.
Don, do you know things about Julia Childs as well?
He's going to study up.
So Lily is, of course, impressed with you, Claudine. How do you know everything, Claudine? I ask myself the same question all the time. How does Claudine know everything about art and history in France?
I just remember. I remember a lot. And then also when I write about it, once I've also written about it, it just kind of locks right in there. So
do you have like a photographic memory?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, you know, I want to be the next Rose Valland, but I don't know if I have that as much, because I could literally be, you know, walking to, you know, pick up my phone and be like, wait a minute, what was I doing? But this kind of stuff, especially if it's something like when I get onto something where I'm researching or I'm looking up something like, one of the stuff for Julia, which I totally forgot, is that Julia Child and her husband were friends. Like, we'll give you a sneak peek to a question for the next one. Julia and her husband, Paul Childs, was friends with Hadley Hemingway and her second husband in Paris.
I mean, that's so cool. It's very incestuous. Yeah. As Lillian said, it's very incestuous.
It is. And I totally forgot that. I'm like, oh my God, how did I forget that, you know? But it's sometimes when I see those things and then it literally, I get so excited. I'm like, oh my God, it's so great. And then it just like locks away.
I mean, this is why I became a photographer, because I have a terrible memory. So you actually know things. So thank you.
There's lots of things I don't remember, like, you know, everyday things. So I don't have room for that stuff.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. We always love chatting with you and your feedback. And thank you for listening and hanging out. And if you want more Paris, because I know travel's kind of on hold. If you are somewhere else in the world, you're not in Paris, we bring Paris to you with our Patreon pages. If you have more questions about that, we send you things from Paris, information about Paris, and you can message us about that. And also in 2 weeks, we will do another live with you about Julia Childs. And if you'd like to join our book club, just send us a message and we can give you all of the information.
You can study up, and then you'll have even more info for the live when we give you a trivia.
Yeah. Be like Don. I love it, Don.
Yeah.
We love you. All right. Awesome. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for listening, and we will chat soon.
Thank you so much. A bientôt.
Bye.